Hi, in this video I want to talk a little bit about formatting lists in your Python source code, and I want to suggest an alternative way of formatting your lists that might make them easier to read and make your code a little easier to understand. So here's a typical list. This is something that you might find in a typical Python program. In this case we have a list of colors, and the list is just a list of strings. Now when lists start to get long, we sometimes like to break them up, and we might want to put each value on its own separate line. This is a very common way of writing code, and I'm sure you've probably done something like this in your own programs. There is a little problem with doing it this way, and I will illustrate the problem. There's a little typo in this code, a little typing mistake, and I'll give you a second to look at the code and see if you can find the mistake. Well, if you notice that there's a comma missing, congratulations, that is the mistake. Now, the bad news is this is not a syntax error in Python. This is actually valid code, and this will run, but it won't do what you expect it to do. In Python, when there are two quoted strings right next to each other, Python will automatically concatenate those strings, and it will give you this, which is not at all what you expected. You'll end up with a value of green blue instead of separate words for green and blue. So how can we prevent this from happening? Well, we can't really prevent it from happening, but we can make it less likely. I'd like to suggest an alternative way of formatting your list, and I'd like to recommend that you put the commas at the beginning of the lines instead of at the end. What this does is it creates a very nice vertical pattern. You have the opening square bracket, and then you have this column of commas which lead your eye directly to the closing square bracket. So now, if you make that same typing mistake, if you accidentally leave out the comma, it becomes very obvious that something is wrong. And this is because your eye is very good at recognizing patterns. And when it sees a pattern of repeating commas all lined up in one column, anything that breaks that pattern is going to catch your eye, and it's going to be very noticeable. So just to recap, here are the two different styles. On the left, there's the traditional way of doing things that you've probably done a million times already. And on the right-hand side, we have an alternative form, which puts the comma at the beginning of the line instead of at the end. I do recommend this second form, and if you have any doubts about whether or not it's going to work for you, go ahead and try it. Use this style in a few of your programs. It's going to take a little bit of retraining. You're going to have to develop some new habits, especially if you've been coding for a long time, because the normal way of doing things is going to be more or less automatic for you, and you're just going to do it without thinking. So you're going to have to sort of retrain yourself and develop new habits. But I think it's going to be worth it. That's it, and I thank you for watching.